Hi, Joe. I'm totally thrilled to have you here today. You have a wealth of information about how to turn a single book into a global and thriving speaking and seminar business. So I know you have lots of information to share with the authors today. So welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here. You know, I often see wonderful works of art, and I think of a book obviously as a work of art, both fiction and nonfiction, and the authors do such phenomenal jobs, and then they create these pieces and all of a sudden they sort of lay flat. They've done all this beautiful work, and now what? And so for me, it's imperative. There's an old saying, or I think it's an old saying, sharing is caring, but the reality is anything I can do to help propel authors forward, I'm going to do that. And there is absolutely a way to build a successful business and get your work out there and share more.
Well, you're definitely living proof, and I know you have a big heart, so I know people are in for a real treat today. So I'm going to ask you my first question. Some people won't have read Frock Off Living Undisguised, which it was your first book, and it's a memoir of your life up until the time you frocked off. So can you share a little bit about what led you to write the book and about your past?
Absolutely. And I just got back from the United States, and when we say frock off down there, they think it means something else. So, and I'm going to share, I'm going to be dating myself when I say this because of our British heritage, I would say in Canada, a frock is widely known at my age, before I say this, as being something of a cover-up, so a dress, clergy, a judge wears a frock, so something that covers you up. I spent 35 plus years as a witness in witness protection as a result of a foster parent using the system to bring girls into his house or their house to have access to them. And it was quite a tragic story, but unfortunately not that uncommon. Mm-hmm. I ended up sharing with the RCMP and social services what had happened to me as a result of this man doing what he did to me, but I wasn't believed. And sadly, as a result of that, he decided to take matters further and not just assault young girls, but he would take care of any future witnesses, and he murdered a little girl I knew. That was the one that I knew was Susan. And when I was 19, they came back to me and they said, would you be willing to be a witness? Now that meant, and I had no concept, witness protection, we think of it as this big, Hollywood, isn't it going to be, it's kind of like romanticized. They come and take you in the middle of the night. They pay for your move and they do all this stuff. That's not what happens. So for me, what it entailed was moving 51 times, having 19 names and 7 different passports. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And there's lots of stories. And unfortunately, there's still lots of different things going on that require people to, hightail it, let's put it that way. I was always, sort of informed that there was a chance he might know where I am, and that meant I had to go. But sadly, there were other kids that were never found that he was suspected of as well. But my book starts out sort of, how I came into the world, and you don't end up in foster care unless there's a reason. And so, it's not a blame game, but the reality is that there was a system breakdown, and I really needed to tell my story so that we could give voice to those who had no voice, and also even to myself as that young girl, because as strong as I was, it was wrong what had happened. And Susan had no voice. She was only 12 when he took her life. And so I decided to write Frock Off. I'm not saying that was easy. I'm just saying that I came to a point. I call it my demarcation date. And it was February 28th. On 2007 at 7 p.m. And the reason I remember it so clearly is I was walking with a girlfriend, and sadly I was going through a divorce. And she said to me, Joe, what would you do differently if you could, change everything in your life? Now, she knew nothing about my being in hiding because it wasn't safe. She only knew about this divorce. And so she was talking to me about the divorce, and I was sad. And I said, I'd frock off. And she said, wow, that'd be a great name for a book. And all the while I'd always thought, yeah, I'm going to write a book one day and it's going to be called this. And I kind of tucked it away in my back pocket, knowing full well I would, but yet I was still so afraid, because at that point I was still in hiding. I was still in witness protection. It would be 5 years later before that book would even be done, and then a year later before it would be published. So it was quite the journey, but I'm so glad I had the courage to do it. And for anyone watching, you know, whatever your book is, please do it. It is so worth the journey. Do it, and do it right, though.
Yes, doing it right is very, very important. Thank you, Joe, for sharing all of that. Now, aside from being afraid of this gentleman, who I understand passed away, which was why you were able to frock off, were you afraid to share your story from just a personal I'm Joe level, expose yourself in such a visible way, especially after being in hiding for so long?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a very articulate girl. Oh yeah. Absolutely. You know, I went from being what I used to refer to myself as highly visible, because I was out in the community running a business, working with entrepreneurs, working with women in business. I've always been doing that. But I was working under different assumed names. Right. And even though I was visible, I wasn't really visible because my name was different. Excuse me, I have a scratchy throat. But I had this, you know, I had this assumed name. And so I was known, but not known. So now imagine, you know, you and I are working together. Maybe I've helped you with your business. I've helped you grow your business, and I've helped you launch these beautiful products. But I'm not who I say I am. Further to that, there was a huge history with my parents and what they had done. They were in the business. Sadly, my father had involved my mother in prostitution, and they used to refer to it as in the business, in the oldest profession. And some will think I'm being, I don't know, flighty or disrespectful. I'm not. I often say, I know my lineage. I was conceived as an entrepreneur. So of course I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I don't mean it disrespectfully, but the reality is I know that. But when I was in hiding, I of course had all those, you know, the shame and the guilt that goes along with what will people think? Well, you know what? First of all, we all have stuff. And secondly, who cares? Like, who really cares? You know, first of all, it wasn't my choice, but even if it was me, imagine if that story was mine. Here I was going out and doing good works in the world, and I was worried about what other people think. I don't know anyone with a clean closet. No one. And who of us has the right to judge? But my biggest fear, though, Joy, was this. You and I are working together. You're telling me all your deep, dark secrets, your fears about, you know, what about, most women are afraid of success, by the way. They're not afraid of failure.
That's an interesting comment.
Isn't it? Now, here's why. Because they're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm successful. How am I going to manage what I already have? Now I'm successful. Now what? Instead of thinking, oh, if I'm successful, I can hire more people to help me. But anyway, here's the thing. You've told me all your dirty, dark, they're not all dirty, but you know, your dark secrets.
Right.
I've told you nothing. You think I'm something else. So I was very afraid that when people found out, they would feel betrayed and hurt. And some did. They felt more that they felt that I didn't trust them. But in essence, I wasn't telling anyone because he did not stop. He told me he would kill everyone I knew and loved. I wasn't going to put anyone at risk. I certainly wasn't going to put you at risk if I knew you. So imagine there's a bit of a disconnect, right? Because you've told me your story. You think you know me, and I'm somebody completely different. And that happened to the people I was married to. And notice I said people. I've been married before, twice before I'm married. This is my third marriage, because I was advised not to tell the men I was married to, because this happened when I was a young person. Wow. That does not bode well in a marriage. So I was and it didn't bode well when the RCMP came to the door. So I was afraid to tell, because who knew what people were going to think, right? So I went from highly invisible, like sort of highly invisible to highly visible overnight with the media.
Wow, that had to be such an experience. I don't even know if I'd be able to handle it.
It was strange. Like when Yeah, it was very strange. And, when I think back now, it's changed now. I think it's called Good Morning Canada, but it was called CTV, Canada AM.
Right.
And I was called by them and said, would you, we'd like to feature you either in Calgary or in Toronto. But I lived in Calgary at the time. And I don't know why. I think it was like, I think it was divine intervention, really, because I felt like I should go to Toronto. And I walked out there as though I was petrified to have my picture taken up until then, or video, like everything was scary. And I walked out onto that stage like I'd been on television forever, and sat down, did the interview. I wasn't uncomfortable at all.
So Joe, you weren't afraid at all. You're on national TV and you weren't afraid at all. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think what happened is when I walked out there, it was sort of it was like everything had come. It just, and all of a sudden it was like a crescendo, in a symphony. It was like, oh, I won't sing because I don't want to scare anybody, but it was as though everything had come to this point. And I felt like Susan was with me, and even my mom, and there's parts in the story that make sense about why that would be so critical. But I didn't feel isolated. And as I was walking out, it was as though this was our moment, our collective moment, all of us who had no voices. And there are so many that never have a voice in this type of a situation. For me to share and to say that, there's something that's not quite right here, and that we all have a big story and that we need to change that. And so I'm not really sure what, because if I think on it, if I give too much thought to it, even now, today, I think, how is that possible? Because I had gone from extreme hiding, really, to being on national television. It wasn't about having a picture taken. It was about having all of these people watching. And I told people, tune in, I'm going to be on TV. Wow. I don't know what was going on. I definitely think it was more like divine intervention, that I was being, I'll just say protected. I'm not sure what the words were, but it was as though this was my time, my story. And it's felt like that ever since.
Wow. Well, that's a wonderful story. That gives me some courage in case I ever go on national TV. Did you know when you wrote the book that you would be turning it into a speaking career and a seminar business? Did you have any idea? Was that part of the plan?
I guess maybe in the back of my mind, because I'd been a speaker, but I didn't know I would be doing it the way I'm doing it now. Here's what I actually envisioned. I envisioned I would write this book, because I already was a speaker. So it's not far-fetched to say I would speak. And every author needs to get out there and share their story in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not as a traditional keynote speaker, if we use that term, but they are, you're going to go to book signings, so you're speaking. You're standing in a Starbucks line, you're speaking. But did I know I would be out there on major stages, speaking? The largest number of people I've spoken to is 2,500.
Wow.
And that was quite different. It's not my favorite, to be honest. I can do it and I can connect, but it's not my favorite. I prefer to speak with groups where I can actually see you eyeball to eyeball and I can actually connect. But that being said, did I know that? I knew I would be speaking, but I didn't know I would be doing what I'm doing now. And I certainly didn't know that I would be hosting events. And as I mentioned, just getting back from Portland, Oregon, or from the United States, getting back from there. And we do host events in other countries. We're going over to Europe, different areas. Been asked to come to, the UK quite a bit, to Australia, to various areas, looking at doing some stuff in Mexico. Wow. Did I know I would be doing it the way I'm doing it now? No, but I guess it shouldn't have been such a big surprise. With regards to speaking, I did know I would have to speak. If you want to sell your product, you have to speak. That's not true. The way I'm doing it now, but you have to get out there and share. It's marketing, right? You have to do it.
Well, and I guess it's like anything else. Once you take one step, you can see what the next step could possibly be.
Absolutely.
And then choose to take it. One of the things you always say is stand on your story, not in your story. Do I have that right?
That's correct.
And what does that mean, Joe? Can you help me out with that?
Absolutely. we all have things, you know, we've been talking about, we all have a story, we all have a big story, whatever our big story is. And sometimes people will say to me, oh, but my story's this, it's not as big as yours. I'm like, there's no measurement of stories, okay? There's no tit for tat. And, you know, heaven forbid, I don't want anyone to go through what I went through. And yet I also know there are much bigger stories than my story. And it's not about a measurement, because our story is who we are. It helps make us. I'm not saying it keeps us where we are, but it helps make us who we are. It also helps make us relatable. But, you know, whether it's, let's say, for example, the trauma that someone faces is bankruptcy or divorce, or heaven forbid, loss of a child, or, you know, loss of anything, loss of a marriage. We talk about divorce, loss of something, a big dream. Maybe, you know, maybe someone, I know a story of someone who had a big dream to be a firefighter, but couldn't do it because they had a degenerative bone disease. That's a big trauma. Yeah. So, you know, we can either stand in that story, which is staying stuck in the story and saying, woe is not just woe is me, but woe is the world that didn't allow this to happen for me.
Right.
Or we can stand on our story and be that voice of encouragement and hope and sharing and showing, like really demonstrating that no matter where you come from, if you think about, so I'll use my case, for example.
Right.
If I consider where I come from, and statistically speaking, how I was brought into the world, and given my background, given my parents' choices, my parents' background, because certainly my mother did not ask to go into that line of work, if we use that term, the oldest profession. Statistically speaking, I should not be where I am. Statistically speaking, I should have been on a different path. Cycles repeat, correct? And so had I stood in the story rather than on it, Frock Off, the book, wouldn't have been written. I would have been yet another person whose life had been changed or altered, or taken that path of, well, that's just how it is. And we know that story from many different areas in culture. For example, we see that from socioeconomic challenges when people are brought into the world. You know, children are born into challenges where there's extreme poverty. Some children make it out, but some don't. No. So stand on that story and leverage it. I believe, and some people have a hard time with this when they understand my true story, I truly believe, in as much as some of it was awful, that a lot of it was blessing to help me to serve others. My empathy is so much higher. You're right, and I can say this, I can own this about myself. I'm so much more generous. You know, when we sell a book, I don't keep any money from book sales. Everything goes to our charities, 100% of net, because I cover the printing cost and the shipping cost of the book. That's it. Everything goes to the charities that we support, the not-for-profits we support. And the reason being is, there but for the grace of God go I. Whatever your belief system, whether it's spirit or higher source, it doesn't matter. But if you look at me statistically, I should not be where I am if you just look at statistics. But I am not a statistic. I am a human being who had something in me that said, no way. I can, I will, I must, I am doing. And that's what happened. Not to be preachy, but that's the truth for me. So you have a choice. You stand on it or you stand in it. I chose to stand on it. And the women I work with, all of them stand on it. And I'm proud of that for them, because we all have bigger messages. We have bigger stories, and we have people to serve. So stand on it for me is much more than it. It's not cliche. It's about living the message, because we can talk about change or we can be the change. And I am not a talker. I am definitely a doer.
Well, I love that, Joe. You're so inspiring. I love it that you give money to charity, and I love it that you help so many people. Okay, so the big question is, 1, 2, 3, what do I need to do? If I want to start a speaking career from a book I've written, what are the 1, 2, 3 steps I should do?
Well, the very first thing, you know, unfortunately, oftentimes people wait till, you know, build the mousetrap and they will come kind of thing, build the better mouse. Don't wait till your book is written. First and foremost, do not wait. That is actually the biggest fallacy there is. Okay. As you're building or writing your book, whether you tell people or not, start building a community of people, start building a database. And I know these are words that when you're a writer or you're an artist, I might as well be swearing at you. I'm speaking a foreign language, but my background's marketing and sales. If you have a book that comes out, so here's my book, okay, so little shameless self-promotion.
Yes, yes,
this
please.
Is Frock Off. We have won number 5 again, or sorry, number 3 again in the world for 5 years in a row. Yeah. Now, I want to share with you that without the help of Tribe, it's very hard to take that book to the next level. So while you're writing, it doesn't matter if you're not willing, if you're not ready to share that you're writing and that you might be publishing. That's okay. You do something else. Maybe you're doing your side hustle. And what I mean by side hustle, you do a different job. So maybe you're working in a bank. Maybe you're in insurance. Maybe you're cleaning. Maybe you're, who knows what you're doing. You're a sales rep. Whatever it is you're doing, it doesn't matter. You know people. Start building a list of people and collecting their emails. And I'm not saying it for spam reasons. I'm saying it so that when you get close to launching your book, like say you're 6 months out, you want to start, and when you decide, I'm going to launch this baby, I'm going to birth this thing out into the world, it's scary. You're going to want to reach out. That's the number one thing I would say to you. You're already writing anyway, right? So you got that thing down pat. You know you're writing. So you've committed to writing. Whether you're going to launch it, we don't know, but let's assume you are. Then if you're going to do this and launch it so it can be something bigger and better, meaning bigger and better for you, so you're going to take it out into the world, you need someone to share it with. So you need a tribe, you need a community. So that's,
I think right? The thing, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Joe, but
no, it's okay.
The thing that many people miss about email is that it's the least expensive way to promote your book. Mm-hmm. And you can reach out to people time and time again and at different occasions, like for Christmas and Valentine's and birthday presents. There's lots of reasons for people to buy a book, right?
Absolutely. And the other thing is that people discount email because they think of social media. I am a huge proponent of social media. So that would be my next thing. And this is still in step 1 though. So step 1 is your email because you're building this, but step 2 is step 1 within that. So 1A if you want, there's many steps, but 1A would be starting your social media presence, not just your personal page, but your fan page, your business page, so to speak, your book page, even if it's community that's around your page. So for me, I focus on women in business. I also focus on being the change in the world. So I don't even, I've lost count of how many pages I have, but groups alone, like I run at least 15 pages and subgroups and et cetera, et cetera. But it's not about the JoJo show, about me saying, oh, look at me, here's my new book. It's about engagement. So email allows me to reach out and say, hey, here's what's going on, and showcasing and providing valuable tips for people to move, whether it's a business tip or whether it's, hey, inspiration, but so does social media. And also when it's email, when I say own, I mean, that's mine versus social media, that's Facebook's or that's Twitter's or that's Instagram's, that's their information. So having that is critical. So that would be number 1, because too often people wait until the book is launched. Okay, that doesn't work. You need to have something happening way before your book is launched. You need to be building excitement and sharing enthusiasm and sharing little tidbits.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah. Number
2, do not be so rushed and so attached to a date for your launch. So if you're going to be self-published, or whether I'm fortunate, I work with a publisher now. We got picked up with the publisher and I help vet to my publisher now. But don't be so, the very first time I did my very first launch, I was committed to November 1st, 2013, because it was All Saints Day. I wanted to do it in memory of Susan. It worked, but it was ridiculous the amount of pressure I put on myself. Don't do that. Give yourself a 6-month window and then add a month, at least a month. And know there's going to be challenges. Also, consult, hire the right people. I made a very big mistake my very first book. I didn't know black, white, and red was the telltale signs of a brand new author. I didn't know that. Look at this. There's no black, white, there's red. That's a really important point as well. Red for cover in this book is because there's some sadness. This is a true crime book. It's very important. Work with someone who knows what they're doing. You don't have to do this. This isn't your strong point unless it is, in which case go for it. If it's not, don't do that. That would be number 2, is work with other people. And, you know, number 3 in particular, join communities where there are other authors and other people. And if you want to speak, get out of your office. For the love of all that is holy, do not sit in your office on social media and think that's going to work. This alone is a great source. But if you don't go out and network and connect with other people, and by the way, this will be the soapbox of Joe. When you get out there and you're out networking with other people, shout out for them, not for you, for them. So when I'm promoting this, I'm going to be promoting you, Joy. I'm not promoting Joe. You already do all that. Right. I am out there to show you. So when I go out and I meet people, I'm out there learning to see how I can support them. And you'd be amazed what people will do when your book comes out and how they want to support you. Those are the top 3 things I can say. Get out, work with other people, and build before your book is launched.
I love it. So Joe, when you decided you wanted to public speak, how did you reach out to let people know about that? So you've got your network, you've been building, you've written your book or writing your book. Now you want to become a public speaker. And I know that you already had done public speaking, so it's a bit different for you. But let's imagine someone's, you know, first-time author, never been on the stage. What would you say would be the first step for them toward becoming a speaker? In addition to the things you've said.
Yeah, the very first thing I would say is don't show up at a brand new place and say, I want to speak. Right. I can tell you right now as an event producer, that's the kiss of death. Okay. Right? Be engaged. So let's say, for example, you know, I live on Vancouver Island, you're here on the island. If there was somebody here on the island, I would say, well, what's your genre? My genre might be, well, in my case, it's true crime. I'd look to see where are there opportunities, maybe even meetup groups. First things first, go to places where some people call them lunch and learns, but it depends on your genre, right? So if you're doing, say you're speaking on yoga or your book is on yoga, then go and find out where you could go and deliver it's not a free talk. It's never a free talk. I want to be clear on this. Okay. You want to be going in and giving a complimentary presentation. And this is important. If it's free, it's diluted. If it's complimentary, it's not. Okay? That doesn't mean money's changing hands. It's just, it's how you think of it in here. The mindset's critical, okay? A lot of this is marketing mindset that we're talking about right now, but go out and find out where that is. Where authors tend to make mistakes is they think, well, I've written this beautiful book. Yeah, great, but I don't know that, right? So go out and see where you can be of service and get visible. This is why being visible and networking is really important before your book comes out, and not making it all about you, but rather making it about how you can be of service.
I love it. I love it. Joe, you've been such a wealth of information. I'm so happy to be learning myself as well as being getting to know you a little bit better. What would be today the #1 takeaway you would like authors to get from your talk? What's your #1 takeaway today?
There's a couple actually. #1, don't go through all this of doing, and then having the books arrive and having them sit in your garage. That to me breaks my heart. You get, you know, hundreds or thousands of books arrive. I know lots of authors that I've seen, you know, 2,500 books in my garage, and that's not a good situation. So, you know, if I was to say, you know, print on demand is a good way to go, by the way, so that it doesn't break the bank. But more importantly, get your marketing leg up before that book comes out. And you know, it's funny because we think that doing the book is the hard work, and it is. Please don't misunderstand, and don't take it with disrespect. My 4th book's going to come out probably next spring. Like it's with the publisher. We're doing some finalizing right now, but unfortunately, that's not really the work. the work is now will begin in terms of getting, creating awareness and building around it. And we're talking 8-10 months out. So, understand that you have to do the legwork. The book is so important. If you're birthing your baby,
yeah,
you wouldn't bring a brand new baby home without diapers, right? So think of it that way. Think of being prepared to feed, clothe, nurture that baby. Just don't let it sit in the garage.
No, I love that. Yeah.
Sounds so basic, but it breaks my heart when people tell me this. So.
No, it breaks my heart too.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have another book called From Best Kept Secret to Success in Love, Life, and Business.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me why you wrote that book?
Absolutely. After I was able to share my story, often people would ask me, how did you get on this main stage? We don't know who Joe Dibblee is, because remember, Joe Dibblee didn't exist before 2013. In fact, November 1st, 2013, Joe Dibblee was born. This name didn't exist. This person technically didn't exist until that day. And so how did I get known so quickly? And it was because of all of the marketing and sales experience I have, and moving me from being in that secret position to doing these live events and live seminars and working with these women. And that is in part, part and parcel what I do, whether it's through launching a book, or whether somebody has a product, whether it's selling cups, whether it doesn't matter, bricks and mortar or services. It's helping them move from being a secret person, being secret, to being a success, and helping them through coaching and whatnot. And I knew, we have done Best Kept Secret to Success events since 2014, wow, where we have women gather, and that's been phenomenal. And we're moving into a different piece where we're actually going to hone it down and do more intimate events. And the only reason is because we can even crack the surface more. But it's so powerful, because when you gather people together with intention and result, you can't help but be successful. And so every time we gathered, they were moving, say, from here to here. And so I thought, well, why don't I write this book so those that can't join us at those events at least could get some starter tips. And so Best Kept Secret to Success is really my presentation, as well as how I did, and evaluating, as we talk about quite often, the big why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Because unless you know your why, you're in trouble anyway. Right?
Yeah, that's one of the things that you say, is that you have to be really clear on why it is that you're doing what you're doing. And I got that from your book and from your website. Mm-hmm. Why is that so important?
The biggest reason is that when you hit an obstacle, so if you're, there's a huge difference between being committed and being interested. And we were talking about this in Portland. When you are committed to doing something, come hell or high water, you're going to get it done, right? If you think about a situation where you've been in a situation where it wasn't questionable, think about you've got kids or something, and there's an absolute imperative, like a child is sick. It's not questionable whether you're going to do what needs to be done. You have to do it. Well, it's very much the same in our business. If we're not committed to getting the work done, when that obstacle comes up, we're going to find a legitimate, in our mind, legitimate excuse. So therefore, we are only interested in that outcome. We are not committed to the outcome. So when I launched Frock Off, I had to decide, was I committed or was I interested? And the reason I initially took so long I took a long time to write that book. Remember, February 2007, all the way until November 2013. And the reason is, I kept saying, okay, I want to write it, but do I want to publish it? Was I committed to the actions and the fallout that was going to happen? Because I knew there was going to be something. So are you committed or interested? So if you are committed, it's different. And if you know your why, you'll be able to stay committed. If you do not know your why clearly, you won't.
I love it, Joe. I'm going to actually end there because that's very inspiring for me. So I really appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge with us today, and getting me excited again. And I'm sure you've done that for a lot of viewers too. So thank you for being here. And you're a delightful person. And I love your generosity. I love your heart. I love that you help women in such a big way.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor, and I'm happy to help women. You know, I'm honored to help any author, but if there are those out there that they're stuck, I'm happy to talk to them.
Well, I'll be sure to include your website and contact information with the video so people can reach out to you personally and check out and connect with you and grow their businesses and their careers.
Awesome. Well, let's get those books out there because they don't belong in a garage.
That's right, Joe. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. Joe and I'll be taking questions in the watch party now. Take care.
See you there.